Hi there, this is Afro Perspectives. Authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, have lifted former President Joseph Kabila's immunity from prosecution. Sometime last week, that is on the 22nd of May 2025, to be precise, the Speaker of the Congolese Senate, Jean-Michel Sama-Lukonde, declared that former President Joseph Kabila could now be tried by the country's courts just like any other ordinary Congolese citizen. He effectively, that is Sama-Lukonde, nullified Joseph Kabila's indemnity from prosecution. However, due to the gravity and the nature of the charges preferred against Joseph Kabila, he is likely to be tried under a court-martial. That is, prosecutors from the military will be in charge of handling his trial. The crimes he is accused of are treason, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. And then there is a charge of participation in an armed insurrectionary movement. When Joseph Kabila handed over power in 2019 to the sitting head of state, that is Felix Tshisekedi, the agreement in place was that as a former head of state, he got the title of Senator for Life. And with that title came substantial privileges, including a monthly salary pegged at 70% to that received by Felix Tshisekedi himself. And more importantly, there was the arrangement that he was immune from prosecution. That arrangement shielded Joseph Kabila from the state and its agents pursuing him in the courts for crimes committed while in power and even while he is in retirement, just like right now. So what is the evidence against Joseph Kabila? And where is it coming from? The DRC state's case hinges on oral testimony provided by a former right-hand man to Kone Inanga, named as Eric Nguba. That's him on the screen in the blue jumpsuit on there. The security services claim that Eric Nguba, during his time with the M23, overheard Joseph Kabila advising Kone Inanga to remove Tshisekedi from power, not by assassinating him, but by a coup d'etat. That was the advice Joseph Kabila and Eric Nguba, to be precise, overheard Joseph Kabila advising Kone Inanga. Well, some say that the security services in the DRC are known to extract confessions using such heavy-handed methods as torture. And it has also been said that no one can rely on Eric Nguba's testimony, as it was likely obtained after he was beaten up, tortured, and all sorts of things done to him. Be that as it may, it is that evidence that led Senator Carol Agito Amela, head of the 40% commission which investigated Kabila's links to the M23. She ultimately advised the Congolese Senate that Kabila and the arrangement that he was immune from prosecution should actually be nullified, and he should stand trial, like I've said before, just like any other Congolese citizen. So besides the oral testimony by Eric Nguba, is there any other evidence that Kabila participated in the M23's latest offensive from the last year until the fall of Goma? It's difficult to tell. Most people who follow the M23 and those allowed to record its activities, that is in Goma, the so-called liberated zones, allege that the picture you see on the screen on there is that of Kabila himself in Goma. That was on the 18th of April 2025, this year. That is, after the lifting of his immunity this past Thursday, by that I'm talking of the 22nd of May this year, Kabila was seen again in Goma, in an undisclosed location in Goma. And on the screen on there, that's Joseph Kabila. And in that snippet of the clip I have loaded on screen, he is addressing the Congolese nation and those who care to follow his activities. The DRC government has long suggested that the M23's allies, the Congo River Alliance, known as AFC in French, in its acronym in French, and led by Corneille Nangaa, is a movement financed by Joseph Kabila himself. In fact, if one were to go back to the elections held in the DRC in 2018, Corneille Nangaa was head of the DRC's Electoral Commission, known as CENI, CENI, using its acronym in French. On top of that, several prominent figures in Joseph Kabila's party, the People's Party for the Reconstruction and Development, PPRD, joined the M23. Take the case of Yannick Chisola on his Twitter handle. He describes himself as the vice president of the PPRD's youth wing, and he joined the M23 in February of this year. Chisola was only vice president to Adam Chalwe, who during President Kabila's time in power was the actual head of the PPRD's youth wing. He also joined the M23 in February of this year. Another prominent member of Kabila's PPRD youth wing, Henry Maji Ngwakuzu, also defected to join the M23 at more or less the same time as Chalwe and Chisola. So you get this idea. Prominent members of Kabila's political party while he was in power, they are now embedded in the M23. You can make whatever you make of it. And then there is those who still think that Joseph Kabila has some relevance to DRC politics. They cite lifting his immunity from prosecution as pure political persecution. It has been said that the evidence against Kabila is purely speculative, flimsy to say the least, and that those who were active in his political family have now joined the M23, and they did so entirely for purely personal reasons. And then those who support Kabila say you cannot blame Kabila for other people's personal acts. And they are free, those people like Chisola, Harimaji, and they were free to join the M23 on their purely personal motives. It has also been pointed out that top operatives from other political parties in the DRC have joined Corneille Nangaa's rebel movement, the AFC or Congo River Alliance, and the M23, it has also been suggested, are given massive, that is those who join the M23 from other political organizations, are given a massive sum of $5,000 on joining the movement, and then a $2,000 allowance per month, given that the average monthly wage in the DRC is a mere $100 or even less. Those figures are certainly tempting, and some people are citing that Chalwe, Chisola, and Harimaji, they joined the M23 purely for financial motives. The sums of money that were dangled in front of them. For sure, I can certainly grasp the reasoning behind such a defense, but that is purely a lawyer's argument, and in politics, legalistic arguments rarely carry the day. On the other hand, the military prosecutors in Kinshasa argue that they have documents, bank statements to be precise, linking Kabila to the M23. Those documents have not been made public, and the reason given has been that those financial transactions are covered by the laws of confidentiality. That is, the military authorities cannot disclose those. They cannot actually give the bank statements to the public for reasons that, to do with the laws like I've said before. Well, I'm likely to take those military authorities for their word. And so one would want to ask, what does this mean for the DRC government? If it is saying that it has lifted Joseph Kabila's indemnity from prosecution. First, the military authorities in Kinshasa can now bring charges against Kabila himself. However, there is a tiny detail that most people are missing, and the government in Kinshasa is fully aware of this. Since February of this year, Kabila has appeared in various places, and I'm sure everyone will agree at this. He is certainly not in Kinshasa or any of the areas controlled by the DRC government. If he is in Goma, then lifting his immunity from prosecution is merely a symbolic act. The M23 has declared that parts of North and South Kivu it currently holds, it has called them liberated zones. So what it essentially means is that these are no go areas for the Congolese authorities. So even if one were to declare Kabila a wanted man and issue a warrant of arrest, who is going to enforce it, and where would that place be? Who is going to do that? That is the question at the center of this whole debate, if it can be called that. Consider the case of Corneille Nangaa himself. Like I have said above, he was head of the DRC's Electoral Commission during Kabila's time in power. He formed the Congo River Alliance, known as AFC in its acronym in French, in December of 2023 in Nairobi. And he has now joined forces with the M23. And some say he is actually the man holding the reins of power in the M23. Then you have the DRC government on the other hand, and they are planning a court martial. And at the same time, say with the case of Corneille Nangaa, they actually sentenced him to death in August of 2024 for war crimes, participation in an insurrection, and treason, those sort of charges. Up to today, Nangaa is a free man and is actually setting up a shadow government, a parallel system of government in both North and South Kivu. He has even threatened that he is going to march all the way from Goma to Kinshasa and seize power and dislodge the government of President Tshisekedi. So now you can see for yourself, these are the issues at stake. And you can see for yourself that the same charges the military authorities in Kinshasa pressed against Nangaa in 2024, that is crimes, war crimes, participation in an insurrection, and treason, are the same sort of charges that are being thrown at Kabila. Some say, however, that the real reason Tshisekedi is pushing for Kabila to be charged, even in his absence, is to eliminate him as a political threat. With Kabila out of the way, Tshisekedi can safely amend the constitution and then run for a third term when his term expires in 2028. And one can safely assume that Tshisekedi is prepared to install another Mobutu-style dictatorship in the DRC. But that is not the only part of the story that matters. I can accept that the government of President Tshisekedi can sentence Nangaa to death in his absence, and that will be the end of the matter. Take this one minor detail. Joseph Kabila was president of the DRC from 2001 to 2018. 18 full years, if I'm not wrong. And he was running Congolese institutions for all that time. The long and short of my what I want to say is that Joseph Kabila built a power base. Even if he is no longer in power, those contacts he built while he was in power are still useful. He has made friends in various places. He has made friends with people in power in Rwanda, Uganda, and even Angola. And people as far, those, the ruling elites in places as far afield as Zimbabwe and Namibia, they count Joseph Kabila as his friend. And then you have the case of Rwanda. Rwanda is especially an important source of support to Joseph Kabila. Both Paul Kagame and General Joseph Kabarebe, the number 2 man in Kigali, are especially important allies to Joseph Kabila. Before we get to the point where I tell you how they put the man we now all refer to as Joseph Kabila in power, that is Kagame and Kabarebe, let's just go back in time a little bit. The man we all now refer to as Joseph Kabila, you can see him for yourself in that image I've loaded on screen on there. He is a sweet, innocent 5-year-old in 1976, and that's Laurent Desire Kabila there holding his tiny hand. And at that point in time, that is in 1976, he was known as Hippolyte Kanambe. His father, a brother in arms with the Laurent Desire Kabila, was a man known as Christophe Kanambe. He was a Rwandan Tutsi and was fighting to remove the then Rwandan Hutu government that was in power at that point in time, while Kabila was fighting to remove Mobutu, to dislodge Mobutu from power in Kinshasa. However, Christophe Kanambe died sometime in the 1970s, and Laurent Desire Kabila took over Hippolyte Kanambe's mother. That is, that's a woman named as Marceline Mukambukuje. Forgive me if I have, I might have got the name right, but that is as far as I can manage to pronounce the name. Laurent Desire Kabila took over Christophe Kanambe's wife, Marceline Mukambukuje, as his wife, and adopted the young Hippolyte as his adopted son. Unfortunately, I have not managed to get a photo of Marceline Mukambukuje. Some of you might want to say, might want to know, where am I getting all this information? Well, I'm not trying to sell you anything here, but I have a copy of Dr. Yalengi Ngemi's book. For those who are interested in drilling down on Joseph Kabila's background, at least for that part of his past before 1996, please let me know in the comments below. I'll give you the links to the relevant links to Dr. Yemi Yalengi Mimangemi's book. He was a lecturer at various universities in the United States, including Rutgers University at one point. Just to put this into context, the late President Laurent Desire Kabila had his own biological children, one of whom, Aime Kabila, was assassinated by agents of the state under Joseph Kabila's orders in 2006. That's her identity document I've loaded on screen on there. But that is another story for another day. Back to the Joseph Kabila story. In 1996, as a favor in return for military support, Paul Kagame and Joseph Kabarebe demanded that Laurent Desire Kabila had to present to the world the man now known as Joseph Kabila as his own biological son. When Kabila was assassinated in February 2001, Kabila got the chance to Kagame got the chance to install his puppet, Joseph Kabila, into power in the DRC. Then Joseph Kabila himself managed to stay in power until 2019, 18 full years. So the man we now refer to as Joseph Kabila is a man who takes his orders from Paul Kagame's Rwanda. As you can see from the foregoing, Kabila is a threat to the DRC, not in the way most people imagine, but because he is an agent and works for the aggressor state to the DRC, that is Rwanda itself. The fact that at this point in time, even the security services in the DRC do not have a clue on his whereabouts, they do not know where he is, only highlights the danger he poses to the political stability of the DRC. On Thursday, on the Thursday, the 22nd of May, Kabila gave a speech and mentioned that he intended to go to Goma in the next few days. That's him on screen on there, rallying those who still believe in his cause. Forget the M23. The real threat to the stability of the DRC is the intended prosecution of its former president, Joseph Kabila. Joseph Kabila, or Hippolyte Kanambe, if one were to use the name he was given at birth, is likely to tip the whole Great Lakes region into another full-blown regional war. Thank you for taking time to tune in. I have done some work on how the outside interests are destabilizing the DRC, and please find some of the clips I've made on the crisis in the DRC in the following video links. And then if there is anything that I have got wrong or I have failed to mention, please drop your comments below. And then I have to remind you that we are only a small channel and your support is highly appreciated. So please subscribe and don't forget to give me some likes. Thank you. Bye. Merci.